Get older and you just get tired of protecting yourself or having any secrets.
Since the 1980s when he joined Hollywood, Brad Pitt has built for himself a legacy that is unforgettable. From his charisma to his raw talent, he's become one of the most respected and admired actors of his generation. For decades, he's played the Hollywood game, keeping it professional, staying quiet, and rarely speaking about the darker side of the industry. But here's the truth. Most people in Hollywood are terrified of calling out evil when they see it. Careers can end, reputations can crumble, and powerful enemies can be made with just a few words. That's why so many stars stay silent.
Really nice for me to be here because I've spent like 20 years just right up the coast from here. Spent a lot of time here, so it feels really homey.
At 61, though, Brad Pitt isn't holding back anymore. He's come too far, survived too much, and reached a point where he no longer has to play the good guy for anyone. And in a shocking revelation, he actually named 6 of the most evil people in Hollywood, and guess what? The names will leave you stunned, especially number 2 and 1. Let's count down from number 6, Bernard Telsey.
Collaborating with them and trying to get inside his or her head to try to figure out what they were imagining for this person.
Brad Pitt once remarked in a rare, unfiltered moment, "The most dangerous man in Hollywood isn't the one you see in the tabloids every week. It's the one who knows how to live in your head rent-free." For me, that's Bernie Tesley. Coming from someone who spent decades navigating the treacherous waters of the entertainment world, those words carried weight. Tesley wasn't just another behind-the-scenes figure in Hollywood. He was a power broker, a master manipulator, and one of the industry's most influential deal-makers. Rising to prominence in the late 1980s, Tesley quickly carved out a reputation as the man who could make or break careers. He negotiated contracts, pushed actors into global superstardom, and helped studios secure billion-dollar returns. On paper, his professional achievements were dazzling. Blockbuster deals, award-winning projects, such as Mean Girls, Margin Call, and a lot more. But behind the gloss and glamour, Pitt insists was a much darker reality. Tesley wasn't just skilled at managing talent, he was notorious for getting into people's heads. Unlike most executives who thrived on business, Tesley thrived on control. He studied insecurities, memorized weaknesses, and used them like weapons. Actors who walked into his office often left doubting themselves, questioning their worth, or agreeing to contracts that benefited Tesley more than their own careers. Countless creatives were ruined because of him, Pitt also claimed. And he wasn't exaggerating. Whispers across Hollywood long suggested that Tesley's fingerprints were on the careers of promising actors who suddenly disappeared from the spotlight.
Actors who are bendable and changeable and
Some walked away broken, unable to recover from his relentless psychological pressure. Others spiraled into substance abuse after being constantly reminded that they were replaceable or not good enough. It was a tactic of power, breaking people down until they were desperate enough to cling to him for validation. The most chilling part, Pitt revealed, was Tesley's ability to make his manipulation look like mentorship. He positioned himself as a savior, a guiding hand in a brutal industry, when in reality he was pulling strings to maintain his dominance. Actors, writers, even directors found themselves caught in his web, mistaking his control for care. By the time they realized the truth, it was often too late.
I don't think we're the only people doing that, but I do think when you said what gels is that
For Pitt, Tesley represented the kind of evil that wasn't loud or obvious, but insidious and deeply destructive. He didn't need to ruin your career publicly, Pitt explained. He'd just plant one seed of doubt and you'd end up ruining yourself. That's how powerful he was. Over the years, more stories surfaced. An actress in her prime confessed that Tesley convinced her she was too old at 30 to land leading roles, shattering her confidence and pushing her into early retirement. A promising screenwriter revealed that Tesley took his script, reworked it under another name, and left him penniless while the film became a massive hit. Time and again, his influence left casualties, talented individuals who could have shaped Hollywood had they not crossed paths with him. The worst part is that even though most people knew of his evil, unwelcoming acts, few dared to speak out against him, fearing blacklisting or character assassination. But at 61, Pitt made it clear he had nothing left to fear. His career was established, his legacy intact, and he no longer felt the need to stay silent about the man he believed embodied the hidden cruelty of Hollywood. The revelation sparked conversations across the industry. Was Tesley truly as evil as Pitt claimed? For many who had encountered him, the answer was yes. He wasn't a tabloid villain, but something far more dangerous. A man who thrived on controlling people's minds, leaving scars that weren't always visible. This is why Pitt considers him as one of the most evil people in Hollywood. Number 5. Keith David. Keith David's career is the kind that most actors dream of. With unforgettable performances in films like Platoon, They Live, Crash, and The Thing, he carved out a legacy as one of Hollywood's most versatile and commanding presences. By every measure of talent and accomplishment, Keith David should be celebrated as one of Hollywood's greats. And yet, according to Brad Pitt, the story doesn't end there. Some people earn respect, some demand it, and then there are a few who want to be worshipped. Keith David falls into that last category. Brad Pitt once remarked when pressed about actors he found most difficult to deal with. It was a shocking admission, considering Keith David's long career in Hollywood, but Pitt didn't mince words. According to Pitt, David has an overwhelming sense of entitlement.
And, I love The Wizard of Oz, and having to get to play the lion was great, because I'm a lion kind of guy.
Pitt believes David carries himself as though the industry owes him constant reverence, as if every project should bend to his will. He doesn't just want respect, Pitt allegedly said. He wants to be treated like a god. During an interview with European media, Pitt described, this entitlement often turned toxic. Keith David had a reputation for talking down to colleagues, brushing aside directors, and making younger actors feel small. While his talent was never in question, his attitude left many uneasy. He's the kind of guy who walks into a room expecting everyone to bow, Pitt once explained. Even more troubling, Pitt claimed, was David's tendency to speak poorly about projects he wasn't chosen for. Instead of moving on gracefully, David would allegedly lash out, spreading rumors about the quality of the film, questioning the director's vision, or dismissing the actor who landed the role as unworthy. Over the years, countless productions reportedly found themselves in his crosshairs, not because they wronged him, but simply because he wasn't part of them. For Pitt, this behavior wasn't just petty, it was destructive and evil at the same time. Hollywood is built on collaboration, trust, and reputation. Once an actor begins tearing down projects they're not involved in, they poison the well for everyone else. It's not just sour grapes, Pitt explained. It's an attempt to sabotage something good just because he's not at the center of it. Colleagues who worked with David admitted, often off the record, that his entitlement could weigh heavily on set. There were stories of him refusing to take direction, insisting his interpretation was superior, or demanding rewrites to elevate his character. Some described it as artistic passion taken too far. Others saw it as arrogance unchecked. What stung Pitt the most was the pattern. Time and again, David's bitterness seemed to resurface whenever a project moved forward without him. Instead of celebrating others, he dragged them down. Instead of focusing on his own successes, he fixated on the roles that slipped through his fingers. To Pitt, this wasn't just unprofessional, it was toxic energy that poisoned Hollywood from within. In one candid moment, Pitt summed up his feelings bluntly. Entitlement is dangerous in this business. Keith doesn't just want a seat at the table, he wants to sit on a throne. Number 4. Harrison Ford.
You work for like 25 years for the company.
Yeah.
You do your best.
Ford's career is nothing short of legendary. From his breakout role as Han Solo in Star Wars to his iconic turn as Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he became one of the most bankable and beloved actors of all time. His performances solidified him as a Hollywood giant, an actor who combined rugged charm with undeniable gravitas. Few actors in history have carried as many blockbuster franchises on their shoulders as Ford. But that doesn't stop Pitt from calling him out as evil. Working with Harrison Ford wasn't always the heroic adventure fans might imagine. Beneath the charm and box office dominance, Pitt described a man whose creative stubbornness often turned into outright clashes. Harrison is brilliant, Pitt admitted, but he's also one of the hardest people to collaborate with when visions don't line up. Creative differences with him don't just get heated, they get explosive. The two men shared the screen in The Devil's Own, 1997, a thriller that should have been a highlight in both their careers. Instead, the project became infamous for behind-the-scenes tension. With reports of rewrites, disputes, and a director caught in the middle, Pitt hinted that much of the turmoil came from Ford's unshakable need to control the creative process. And this was admitted by Ford himself during an interview with Esquire magazine. Harrison didn't just want to play his character, Pitt recalled. He wanted to shape the entire narrative. If something didn't fit his idea of how the film should work, he pushed back hard. The friction wasn't about ego in the traditional sense. Both actors were established stars, but about vision. Ford, known for grounding his characters in realism and grit, often demanded script changes to suit his instincts. Pitt, meanwhile, was pushing for nuance, complexity, and a darker edge. The result? Long standoffs on set, constant rewrites, and a film that critics later noted felt uneven, as though it had two competing voices tugging at its core. For Pitt, this experience with Ford came to symbolize the dangers of unchecked creative clashes, one that deeply pained him in unimaginable ways. Others who worked on the film echoed similar sentiments. Crew members whispered about days lost to arguments over single scenes and about the strain it put on everyone involved. One insider described it as a battle of wills, where no one was willing to blink first. Over the years, Pitt never forgot how damaging those creative differences felt in the moment. In interviews, Pitt has rarely spoken Ford's name directly when asked about difficult co-stars, but insiders close to him insist the experience left a mark. There's a difference between protecting your art and suffocating it, Pitt reportedly said. Harrison crosses that line too often. To audiences, Harrison Ford will always be the daring archaeologist, the rogue smuggler, the fugitive on the run. But to Pitt, Ford remains one of the people he will rather not work with. Number 3. George Clooney.
9 years to
I
do it
wanted
again.
to wait until I was old enough to not remember my lines.
Oh.
Pitt and Clooney were once Hollywood's golden duo. From the Ocean's 11 trilogy to their red carpet camaraderie, they were seen as brothers in arms, charming, stylish, and inseparable.
If I was going to name someone president, well, I got to name that George Clooney, because why not?
For years, they laughed together, worked together, and fueled the image of an unshakable bond. But in Hollywood, not all friendships survive the weight of power, fame, and ambition. And as rumors have it, Pitt and Clooney's relationship has dramatically gone sour. And of course, there is no smoke without a fire. After their split, Pitt has allegedly confided that Clooney isn't just difficult, he is one of the most evil people in Hollywood.
Well, I do have some things to say about him, and it will include the word in it, apparently. Since he used that about me.
Sure.
George plays the role of the nice guy better than anyone, but behind the curtain, it's a performance. Take it from me, because I used to be very close to him. In the view of Pitt, Clooney's brilliance lies in how seamlessly he switches masks. One moment the lovable joker, the next a ruthless strategist willing to sacrifice anyone to keep himself at the top. Insiders whisper that Pitt became wary of Clooney after he realized Clooney was speaking ill of him behind his back, questioning his choices and undermining his credibility in industry circles. On the surface, Clooney kept up the image of friendship, but beneath it, Pitt reportedly felt betrayed, realizing that the man he once considered a brother was quietly pushing him aside. Though he didn't explicitly call out Clooney, Pitt allegedly said in an interview with Linforce that evil isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the smile you trust the most that hides the knife. Pitt was of the opinion that Clooney had intervened to block projects he was attached to, subtly lobbying against him when studios considered big-budget collaborations. He also claimed Clooney had a hand in reshaping narratives in the media, using his influence to cast himself as the saintly humanitarian while letting rivals, even friends, look reckless or unstable. For Pitt, this was the ultimate betrayal. Clooney wasn't just competing, he was manipulating the very stage they both stood on. Today, Pitt rarely speaks about Clooney in interviews. The warmth is gone, replaced by a careful neutrality that fuels the rumors of a rift. To the outside world, Clooney might be the witty, silver-haired charmer, a man adored for his activism and grace. But to Pitt, he is a symbol of something else entirely. The reminder that in Hollywood, evil doesn't always come with a scowl. Sometimes it wears a smile, shakes your hand, and calls you brother. Number 2, Tom Cruise.
They say, well, okay, and then we say, can you take these 2 windows out?
It's no news that from the very beginning, Pitt never truly clicked with Tom Cruise. On the surface, the two were Hollywood's golden boys, young, impossibly handsome, and at the top of their game. But behind the cameras, Pitt's experience was anything but golden. It all started in 1994 when Pitt and Cruise were cast together in Interview with the Vampire. On paper, it was a dream pairing. Pitt as the brooding Louis and Cruise as the flamboyant Lestat. But once production began, Pitt quickly realized that this wasn't just a film, it was a competition. Cruise, Pitt recalled, had an intensity that was impossible to ignore. Every moment on set was charged with an invisible tension, like 2 boxers circling each other in the ring. But Cruise didn't just act the part, he studied, analyzed, and strategized, turning the smallest details into advantages. If the lighting gave Pitt's character a softer glow, Cruise would demand adjustments. If Pitt delivered a subtle emotional moment, Cruise would counter with an explosive burst of energy, making sure the attention shifted back to him. Pitt later admitted that it was exhausting. He confessed that working alongside Cruise felt less like collaboration and more like a battle for survival. At no point was he quiet about it. Pitt made sure his frustration was made known, making extreme remarks that many reacted to within and outside Hollywood. He shared that because of Cruise, he would return home after long days of filming, drained and disillusioned, asking himself why a project meant to explore artistry felt like a high-stakes chess match. He described Cruise as relentless, not because he wanted to strengthen the story, but because he wanted to win. And that was the heart of the problem. For Cruise, it seemed to be about domination. Pitt came to see him as a man who couldn't stand to share the spotlight, a man who needed to outshine everyone around him, even if it meant suffocating the creativity of others. Recently, this perception hardened into certainty when rumors had it that Cruise was uncomfortable with Pitt's decision to shoot his phone movie in the UK, a country Cruise considers his personal territory. In addition to Pitt's working with the same director that he hired for Top Gun, Pitt said this is a clear sign of territorial obsession. To him, Cruise wasn't simply competitive, he was toxic. Pitt saw the way Tom's presence on a project turned every decision into a struggle for dominance. He believes that Cruise wasn't satisfied with succeeding. He needed others to fail. He called him one of the most toxic competitors he had ever worked with. It wasn't out of bitterness, he insisted. It wasn't jealousy. It was the truth. Number 1. Angelina Jolie.
I remembered thinking this is not how they should be. This should be a celebration of life.
There was a time when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were the very definition of Hollywood royalty. Together, they commanded headlines, red carpets, and even humanitarian causes. To the public, they looked unstoppable, the picture of beauty, power, and purpose. But behind the glamour, Pitt's view of Jolie eventually turned far darker. According to Pitt, the unraveling wasn't sudden. It began quietly, with subtle shifts in how Jolie operated. At first, he admired her passion, her drive, her ability to command a room. She was magnetic, but over time, Pitt felt that magnetism turned controlling. He began to see Jolie not as a partner, but as someone who thrived on control, someone who needed to be in charge of every detail, from their family life to the narrative that surrounded them in Hollywood. Pitt described how Jolie's influence could cut deep. She had a way of getting into people's heads, bending them to her vision. Friends, colleagues, even insiders on set often found themselves swayed by her charisma. To Pitt, this wasn't just charm, it was manipulation. He came to believe that Jolie's power lay not in collaboration, but in domination.
I wish I could have that, but I'm never gonna have that because I'm all over the place and I'm never...
The tension grew worse when projects overlapped with their personal life. If Pitt considered a film or role that Jolie disapproved of, she could turn icy, dismissive, even undermining. He recalled times when she would speak ill of projects he valued, planting doubt not only in his mind, but in the ears of others. For a man who built his career on balancing blockbuster fame with nuanced performances, it felt suffocating. What made it harder, Pitt admitted, was the way the public saw them. To outsiders, Jolie was the heroine. Bold, outspoken, unafraid to challenge norms. To him, she had become something more unsettling, a partner who demanded loyalty on her terms and whose disapproval could cut sharper than any critic's review. By the time their marriage collapsed, Pitt had already made up his mind. Jolie, he believed, was not just difficult but dangerously controlling. Someone who could charm millions while quietly dismantling the people closest to her. For Pitt, though once his wife Jolie is one of the outstanding evils he has experienced up close in his personal and professional history. Let's know your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like this, like and share.